Abusua kwaba eba POG political highway so nene so yasa jedwa na yetena sisi ala mamunim Ghana political headlines ni bi na yeso chese yeso ya dom su ko de stories ni bi de baba be so mo POG media so tide mo so mbe hu de eko ene de eba o my Ghana politics emu na yɛbɔ de Ryan nsɛm ma na kyerɛ sɛ yɛbɔ de bra ɛyɛ galamsey nsɛm a kyerɛ sɛ ɛno nso abɛda ɛyɛ ɔman Ghana kɔn mu a kyerɛ sɛ ɛno nso ɛtumi ɛredi yɛn a kyerɛ sɛ na nnipa bebree ɛredi ho nkɔmmɔ sɛ ɛyɛ yɛwura John Dramani Mahama nso ntumi declare ɛyɛ state of emergency ɛwɔ ɛyɛ ɛberɛ a ɔba aban mu no ɛyɛ bɔ a ɔhyɛ ɔman Ghana sɛ ɔno nso bɛfa galamsey kun no de ato no so na kyerɛ sɛ ɔno nso atumi abrɛ no ase anaasɛ ɔno nso atumi adi ɛyɛ saa ɔko yi ɛso nkonim na wei na ɛyɛ Ghana ɛyɛ mmaranimni panyin pa a ɔno nso wɔ ɔman Ghana mu ɛyɛ Tsikata ɛde nsɛm bi ɛde abɛto dwa wɔ ɛkwan a yɛwura John Dramani Mahama nso ɛbɛtumi afa so a na kyerɛ sɛ ɔno nso atumi abrɛ ɛyɛ saa ɛyɛ illegal mining ase na nsɛm a ɔde to dwa ɛkyerɛ sɛ ɛyɛ ɔnkɔ after ɛyɛ yɛn ɛyɛ the former ɛyɛ president ɛyɛ Nana Addo Dankwa ɛne nkurɔfoɔ a ɛyɛ ɔno nso ɛyɛ license ahodoɔ ɔno nso issue ɛde ma wɔn sɛ ɔmo nso etimi ɛde kɔ forest reserve mu nso ɛde kɔ yi ɛfɔm agodie ne nyinaa ɔmo fɛ saa nkɔfoɔ ne nyinaa akyɛ sɛ ɔno nso ntumi ngye saa license na ɛbrɛ a yɛwura Nana Addo Dankwa a efiri aban mu no ɔno nso ɛde ma amanfoɔ bebree no ɔno nso ntumi revoke saa license ne na abusua mɛyɛ sɛ ɛbɛgye brɛ ne abɔ ɛde wura nsɛm a ɛyɛ saa ɛyɛ mmaranimni Tsikata nso ɛde to dwa ɛde fa illegal mining no.
And we'll read them back to you. I want to start with you, Mr. Tsikata. I just talked about the fact that we started this whole thing with illegal mining. And it's been 1 year down the line. We are still grappling with this issue, now even debating as to whether or not we should declare a state of emergency. Why are we where we are?
Well, it's a shame indeed that we are where we are, but I think there's some hard facts that we've got to face. One is that clearly there are vested interests that are protecting the whole situation that we find ourselves in. There are vested interests which are trying to prevent any serious combating of what we publicly are recognizing is an untenable situation. I mean, you ask yourself, if we all proclaim that this is something terrible, why is it that there's still some people who are able to get away with, mining in forest areas, illegal, mining in various parts of the country? I mean, clearly, some of these people have felt protected politically, for instance. And again, I think we need to call a spade a spade. I mean, in the last 8 years, you look at the number of licenses that were granted for mining, including mining in these forest areas and so on. And it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you were saying a year ago, you were raising issues, alarms about this, why was it possible, even just before the handover to a new government that had been elected, in the December election, why was it possible for so many new licenses to be granted? Why? You ask yourself.
You talk about in the last 8 years, but you do understand that even before the last 8 years, galamsey was still rampant.
I understand that. All I'm pointing out is that we are talking about continued galamsey activities, even in the face of us all agreeing as a country that this is doing a lot of damage. Yes, it's been there, but the scale of it in the last year has been extraordinary. I mean, your colleagues, investigative journalists, have been, exposing some of these things. Everybody is talking about it. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that it's a new problem. I'm saying that the scale of the problem has been extraordinary, and it would not have reached these levels if it did not have the backing of powerful vested interests.
And I want to get your preliminary thought as well, Mr. Ayuko, because Mr. Tsikata really is talking about how the situation worsened, for instance, in the last 8 years. And you bear witness to that LI 2462, which actually permitted mining in forest reserves, worsening the country's case.
Well, I wouldn't say worsening. This thing has been going on for some time. And we are all aware of the menace. Before I left this country in 2017 to take up my post, I knew that we were fighting with Gàlà&Calls. And in 2017, when we took over, there was this attempt at getting people to shift to do something, some other things like going into palm plantation and the rest. You know, the water bodies had already, you know, gone bad. And it was the talk of, it was a talk on the lips of everybody. We were all talking about Gàlà&Calls. If you situate it within the last 8 years, you create problems for yourself because this thing had been ongoing for some time, and then it makes the thing looks a little more like NDC MPP matter. But this is a matter that we say affects everybody, and we should do all we can to put a stop to it. So I wouldn't say that it worsened just because during that time it ought not have started at all. And we knew of small-scale mining many years back in Akuffo and the rest. You know, so who gave them that audacity to go into, you know, water bodies and now start doing their whatever crude refineries in the water? Were they not people doing, weren't people doing some kind of small-scale mining many years back?
So the point about it being worsened is how many licenses were issued within that period as compared to previously?
Does it matter?
It does, because a lot of people get into the forest and other places.
Whether you have 10 licenses or 20 licenses, what they are doing there is wrong. So why was it that during their time, before 2017, why did we have Gàlà&Calls? If what we are saying is the position, why did we have Gàlà&Calls? We had it. It shouldn't be there, but it was there. That is what we want to look at. We must stop it, find a way of stopping it. That is all.
I'll come back to you, Ms. Ayuko, but I want to get your preliminary thought as well, Mr. Puku. As a former national security minister, really, where you think we got it wrong?
I think we got it wrong because we have focused on assigning blame and also perpetually trying to find causes and scapegoats instead of resolving the problem. And we've come to a point when our very existence has become a very relevant issue. So in my own view, let us put the arguments and the blame game behind us. And as a nation threatened, we now have to deal with the safety of our people. We now have to deal with the extent of the problem. And in security terms, we are heading towards an insurgency because we are dealing with armed groups. We are dealing with a huge national budget if we are to address the problem. Not only trying to remedy the situation, but now we have to decide the budget that is needed to address the issue and remedy the damage done. And if we don't put this blame game behind us, we're going to lose our very existence, not just our lives, but on the way the international community are going to deal with us.
You see what's happening as a blame game issue because people feel that they are putting people on their toes. They are pointing fingers at those who are supposed to take proper responsibility and ensure that we didn't get to where we are now. You're calling that as blame game?
Yes, because we have to concede that we've all done the wrong thing, that all political parties have a part to play in what has happened. So we have to be honest and say that he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. And let me not go into details about what I know.
You can
But
tell us what you
I'm
know.
confident that all groups have to concede that we have not done well to our people. And the moment we come to this admission, I believe we'll focus on the resolution of the problem.
Mr. Tsikata, I realize you are reacting to what Mr. Poku was saying.
Well, I'm not indulging in any kind of a blame game when I point out that the scale of Gàlà&Calls activity escalated in the last 8 years. That's just a fact. Let's face it. The scale of pollution of water bodies, the scale of destruction of forests, the scale of cocoa farms being turned over to illegal mining activity escalated. People in the cocoa sector, reference this as part of the reason why Ghana's cocoa production dropped dramatically in the last couple of years. These are facts.
So this is what...
So let me be clear that I've not even begun to blame anybody yet. Of course, if there's blame to be, allotted to people, it has to be allotted. But I hadn't begun yet. All I had started talking about was the escalation. And it is that escalation which has led to the proliferation, for instance, of arms that you talk about. In the past, in times when people were doing small-scale mining in Akwete and so on, they didn't have the scale of arms, the sophistication. So you must be the first to recognize when one is talking about an escalation, that's where we are now. It's an escalated situation, and therefore, it is now a matter of national security. That's where we are now. And
we'll go into that bit about the declaration of a state of national security or declaring areas that are infested with illegal mining as national security zones. But I wanted to come to you very briefly, Mr. Ayikoyotu, because the data shows that since 2017, over 2,000 mining and related licenses have been released. In addition to that, when you're talking about data in terms of times, it says in February 2017 to December 2018, only 7 licenses issued in 2017 and none in 2018. Now, after the ban was lifted, the number of licenses small-scale miners increased with over 900 licenses awarded by December 2018.
Why did we have to place a ban? What was happening before a ban was placed?
The question is about the licenses, not the ban.
I'm asking you, why was a ban placed? Didn't you situate it within that? That was after the ban was lifted, that more licenses were given. And I'm asking you, didn't we have a problem that we were solving by placing a ban?
Yes, there was a problem.
And I'm saying, why are we talking about this escalation business? When we have a bad situation, then we went to West and the West.
No, so
It's already bad. There was something wrong. The waters are turned brownish and poisonous already.
So the import of the question is, knowing that it was already bad, did we have to issue more licenses for illegal mining to go on?
This is the thing that you do here, which creates...
Sound like POG Media, my sister, over job, like, so on subscribe to a POG Political Media, so any day, any book, so on so over job subscription. Now I share enough for so and so it's me a canon who the echo any day, abandon oh my Ghana and sama. The Tsikata and the two be an academic person no create through do na because na. Ye nine Gàlà&Calls kon na chese o that before say MPP eba ba na Gàlà&Calls o ba na enye saske wo na chese eno so dru right now I say ye nsuo ene ye nnuane a chese eno so edi no na endru saske wo no na ono so ne kase mu no so say sa license a MPP aban issue ne mo no eno na amasa we ni na enso edi aba
problems for TV3. You see, you are now behaving as if you have taken a position that by all means there was an escalation
during
during the time of the
Mr. Ikwelti, that's not the point.
That's why I'm coming out clearly to tell you that when you do these things, that is when you create problems for yourself.
That is not the point.
We have argued, he has brought his point, I have answered him. You have taken it back and you are insisting that the escalation took place. I'm telling you, bad west. There was something, the matter already, which was happening in this country. And you cannot run away from that. That it is true.
That is a
that
fact.
There was Galamsey. Why are you interested in insisting that it got bad only during the time of MPP?
That is not the point.
What will you gain by doing that?
That is not the point.
How are we going to fight Galamsey?
If you would kindly hear me out.
If you could kindly, stop it if you want us to come and be part of your program.
Mr. Ikwelti, if you would kindly hear me out, the point is not to, I think we've moved on from the bit about escalation. I was only saying...
You have gone back to say the same thing, to show the number of licenses that were given.
I was only giving you data.
After the ban was lifted, who imposed the ban? Who imposed the ban?
It was the government.
What was the ban for? Was it the MPP who was doing that?
It was to deal with the problem.
Let's discuss this matter and stop this escalation business.
I would move on, but the point I'm trying to make is that I wasn't insisting on escalation of the case. I was only giving you data based on what I said earlier, although we have moved on. But I want us to move on to the legal bit, because again, the question is that we have a lot of, legal frameworks that are supposed to be protecting our environment. If you look at the Act 703, which I mentioned earlier, when you look at even at the 2016 one, a number of them that we will not be able to have time to go through. Mr. Tsikata, that's why I'm coming back to you as a lawyer as well. People argue that it is not necessarily about the laws we have, because when it comes to the laws, we have perhaps adequate to protect our environment from degradation and destruction. But it is the fact that perhaps the law is overrated, because the law in itself, without action, cannot help solve the problem.
No, I would agree.
How do you...
I would agree with that. And I think, a lot of the time, people talk as if once you make some legal adjustments here and there, once you declare a state of emergency or whatever, you'll solve the problem. That's far from the case. And I would completely agree that, we shouldn't focus just on laws. We should focus on the nature of the problem. And in my view, that's where vested interests come. You see, if you have a lot of people who feel that there is value in something and who are going after it by hook or by crook, they will try to protect the position that they're in every way possible. So that makes it more difficult for the enforcement action. We lost a whole military major, because the military were put to work in relation to a situation involving illegal mining. Now, so we can't run away from the fact that you have these vested interests. And if we are not willing to assess the graduation of vested interests from one period to another, and it's not just about political parties in power that we should be interested in, but even if we talk about it in terms of periods, we have to identify the way these vested interests protect their positions, which makes it more difficult to enforce. So enforcement is a problem. And it becomes more problematic when you have these vested interests very, sort of entrenched in powerful positions.
We have to identify the source of the vested interest. I know you've been monitoring the situation as well, and I'll come back to you very shortly, Mr. Ikwelti. What have you yourself identified? Which is why we are where we are.
Well, it's quite clear to me. When you look at the award of licenses, which Mr. Ikwelti doesn't want you to talk about, the reality is that a lot of licenses were awarded to, people who were closely connected with those in power, those who had the opportunity, those who had the authority to grant licenses. That's the reality. We can't run away from it.
Mr. Ikwelti, how do you respond to that question about the fact that the law in itself cannot deal with the problems that we have. I've just gone through some of the acts that we've had, some of them amended 2016 and all of that. And so how do we combine action with the law to ensure that we deal with the problem as we should?
Well, clearly, you know it's a political will. You know, people were talking plenty during the campaign. They were campaigning in prose only to come and rule in poetry. And they've now been giving us reasons why certain things ought not to be done. I followed them closely, and I was satisfied that they had no plans to fight Galamsey. In 2020, when the MPP was fighting Galamsey, there was a leader who said, even if they jail you, we will come and release you. We lost in all the Galamsey constituencies.
You're referring to former President John Mahama?
Yes. And then I recall also seeing some group of Galamseyers going to buy pickups to give to a party to do their campaign.
Which party was that?
You are in the media, so find out. So what I'm saying is that in this time round two, I followed carefully. And what our current president used to say is that we've got to balance the jobs with environmental degradation. The people are there who are looking for their daily bread. We cannot just stop them. So I knew that nothing was going to happen when they take over. You have sound bites of leading figures in the NDC who were shouting about repealing a certain LI. They have come.
I just mentioned it, LI 2462.
They are now talking about amending it. So for me, I am satisfied. And that's why I'm telling you, stop this blame game and saying that
I don't think what I did was a blame game. And we've moved on from that, Mr. Ikwetu.
But it's been a problem all over. All over. And those who were shouting at the top of their voices, declare a state of emergency, repeal airlines, so and so, they are now in office. They haven't done that. Will you want to talk about it? Would you want to talk about those things?
Yes, we should.
Mr. Poku, again, and Mr. Ikwetu has just taken us into that space where Ghanaians are calling for a declaration of a state of emergency. And the president says that we haven't exhausted all the processes that there are, and therefore he doesn't find the need for us to declare a state of emergency. You are a former national security minister. If you can tell us really the difference between what the president has given us now, which is declaring those areas as national security zones, and a real declaration of a state of emergency?
Well, the public, understandably, are very desperate. And when you are desperate, you are looking for solutions. So the public outcry, in my own view, is the loss of confidence in the ability of all political parties to solve the problem. You see, we've always, again, we are focusing on what went wrong. But where we are now, the public are looking for answers. We have had delayed actions. We have delayed the corruption of those that they expected to protect them, their safety. And we don't need to go into what is happening. The causes are very open. Food security has been very much endangered. Our cocoa and gold, natural resources, major source of income, are threatened. So there are many reasons why the public wants something and is getting to a demand for a state of emergency. But at the end of the day, when you grant this state of emergency, who are the tools for implementation? It's the security agencies. So now the president hopefully is meeting the faith groups and other civil society organizations on Friday. And I believe that the president who must be privy to national security reports, is going to share some of the challenges. And some of the challenges are the extent of the problem, the military preparedness to tackle the issue, the extent of the nation that might be the target of any such declaration. But quite clearly, it's well established that the safety of the people are endangered as a requirement which is a requirement for emergency action. But I think the public outcry may be a response that is coming from desperation. And I believe that when the president is able to communicate the facts to civil society groups, they might be able to reconsider.
So
because he may be in position to information that is not available to the public.
So let me get your thought. Based on your submission, are you saying that it is the right time for the president to declare state of emergency instead of the national security zones he's categorized those areas?
Well, the devil is in the implementation. And the president being privy to intelligence will be able to consider the issues involved, will be able to have briefing with selected members of society, and among the problems will be given the challenges that are facing national security. Are we able to deploy security personnel? And then, in what measure are we going to do so? Because apart from 2 regions, the rest of the regions have suffered from Gàlà&Calls. So he will need to assess the situation, given the reports available to him.
So I'll come back to you on that, and I'll read a bit of really.
But I see, so come on, I bought a radio medium, say POG Media, the Ghana authentic political headlines are a POG Media, so, and I was a bit me, I can also who the echo any day, Ebanina, my Ghana political ASG. Mention there's one subscribe to POG Media, any day, and book also about your subscription. Now I share enough for so answer, so it's me, I can also who the echo any day, Eba. It means was sliding to the comment section or now, so it's me, Eddie, come on, POG Media, right? Beba. Na yensu ya baba be ma ho mo. Me da se so jebre na kam recession.